But with that said, let's talk about main topic number 7. Now, you want to talk about going back to rideshare, because here's what's going to be interesting. A lot of us people are driving their little clunky cars now for rideshare, because rideshare does not pay a lot of money. So you know what? You don't want to be putting a lot of money into your vehicle to drive Uber and Lyft. You don't want to be like these idiots who spend thousands of dollars and have like a car payment on a fancy car just to do rideshare. That is a big, big no-no. Use a car that's paid off, that you might replace in a few years anyway. Never, ever, ever buy a new vehicle for this. But the problem with these old cars is that they are polluters. And the environment is becoming a bigger and bigger deal, especially now that we took a lot of cars off the road for like a few months. We could see how great the air looked when people weren't driving. And Lyft, I believe, was the first company to say that they were going to go all electric in several years, and that you would have to have an electric vehicle to drive rideshare. Well, California says that that's too long, and they are considering forcing Uber and Lyft to go electric much, much sooner. So here's the story from Gizmodo. California's Air Resources Board submitted an ambitious proposal in recent days that would put a cap on emissions from vehicles being used for rideshare apps like Uber and Lyft, Wired reports. And while these companies have an infamously tumultuous history with labor regulators in their home state, they seem significantly more receptive to this push to go green than they are to sufficiently compensate their workforce. That's interesting. Yeah, that's a funny thing. Like, yeah, these companies are like, they're making a big deal about how they're eco-friendly, but they don't want to talk about how much they pay their workforce. Well, the proposal would mandate that 60% of miles traveled by Uber and Lyft vehicles be in electric vehicles by 2030. To achieve this lofty goal, the board estimates that roughly 1/3 of rideshare vehicles would need to be electric. California, that's a tall order, to put it lightly. In 2018, electric vehicles only made up 1% of miles traveled for ride-sharing services, only 59% more to go. In their proposal, the board suggested that companies like Uber and Lyft would need to offer incentives for their contractors to make the switch, and particularly target their highest mileage drivers. Lyft, which earlier this year committed to convert all of its driver vehicles to electric by 2030, welcomed the stricter regulation because they've already committed to it. And they said, we think that CARB should continue to be aggressive. So, while Uber has not made any similar comments regarding electric vehicles, a company spokesperson told Wire that Uber looks forward to continuing to engage with CARB and that it supports California's clean mile standards as a first-of-its-kind performance-driven standard. Now, here's the thing. Why are Uber and Lyft in favor of this? Because there's a lot of drivers who will have to quit. They can't afford to just buy a new vehicle. Here's why Uber and Lyft are excited about this. They get to play the good guys. They get to say, hey, we are working with California. We want to go green. We want to help the environment. We want to kill global warming. And it looks good for them. Here's the other thing. 10 years, well, yeah, it's about 10 years, 9.5 at this point, is a long time. A lot of people who are driving Uber and Lyft now might not still be driving in 10 years from now. And these people, and new people will come in with newer vehicles, and more new vehicles are hybrids and electrics now. And if you have to start coercing your drivers to start buying new vehicles to comply with a health mandate, guess what happens? There are newer and nicer vehicles when you call an Uber and Lyft. So they win one way or another, and that's why they're pushing it. Where, of course, it's going to hurt is with you folks out there, those of you who have those gas guzzlers. And hey, the car isn't much, but it gets you what you need to do, and it helps you with your rideshare. You have to buy a new vehicle now, and they don't pay enough to justify that for the most part. So you're either going to quit, or you're going to be buying a new vehicle, and you're going to be taking a bath every month. A bath every month. You know, my dad was like, when he was in Chicago last year, he Ubered everywhere, and he would ask the drivers, how much money do you make? And frequently, because they all use like the rental programs, people would say like, well, I drive Monday and Tuesday to pay off the car, and then I'm driving the rest of the week for my family. And it's like, so you're spending a third of your time driving just to pay off the car? That doesn't seem super viable. But who knows? Maybe it is. I would like to know, though, what do you all think of this story? Do you think California is right to do this? And if so, do you think it's reasonable? And do you think people are going to upgrade their vehicles? I would love to know. Comment below. Like, favorite, share, subscribe. And as always, flame responsibly.